Brendan had not slept in 3 days. Not properly. Not the kind of sleep that actually rests you. He would drift off for an hour, maybe 2, and then surface again, eyes open in the dark, staring at the ceiling, mind already running the same loop it had been running for months. Tomorrow was his 25th birthday. He had been dreading it since he was 24. It wasn't the number that frightened him. It was what the number represented. Another year inside a life that had never quite fit. Another year of waking up in a body that felt borrowed. Another year of performing a version of himself that satisfied everyone around him and satisfied no one inside. He turned over in bed, pulled the blanket tighter, closed his eyes. The clock on his nightstand ticked toward midnight. The angel, the light came first.
Soft. Warm.
The kind of glow that shouldn't exist in a dark bedroom at midnight, and yet there it was, filling the corners of the room with something that felt less like light and more like presence. Brendan sat up slowly. The figure standing at the foot of his bed was unlike anything he had words for.
Tall.
Still. Wings of pale light unfurling gently behind its back like something between a dream and a fact. Who? His voice came out barely above a breath. What are you? The figure smiled. The warmth of it reached across the room like sunlight through glass. I am an angel, Brendan, and I have come to offer you a choice. His heart hammered. Every rational part of him screamed that this wasn't real, couldn't be real. And yet he sat perfectly still, because the presence before him was more real than anything he had ever felt. A choice, he repeated. You have carried something heavy for a very long time, the angel said, its voice the kind of sound that seemed to settle rather than echo. I am here to give you an opportunity to change your path. Brendan's mouth had gone completely dry. What kind of choice? The angel regarded him with eyes that held no judgment, only the quiet patience of something that existed outside of time. 2 paths, it said. The first, to live as the woman you have always felt you were meant to be. Your life will be fulfilling. You will know love, purpose, creativity, and joy. But it will be short. 20 years. The breath left Brendan's body entirely. 20 years. As herself. As the person he had spent a quarter-century pretending not to be. And the second, he managed. You remain as you are. Your life will be long. You will see your 80th birthday. But it will be unremarkable. You will exist. You will not truly live. The silence that followed was the heaviest thing Brendan had ever sat inside. 20 years of being real. Or 60 years of being safe. He closed his eyes. His mind moved through possibilities like hands searching in the dark, trying to find something solid to hold on to. 20 years felt impossibly short. And yet the life he was living now felt impossibly hollow. Could he find happiness in the long road? Could he build something meaningful within the walls he'd always lived inside? Maybe. Maybe. I choose to stay as I am, he said finally. His voice was barely a whisper. A long life. Maybe I can find happiness this way. The angel's expression was unreadable. Very well, Brendan. Your choice is made. A flash of light. And then the room was dark and ordinary again. And Brendan was alone. The long road. The years passed the way years do when you are not quite present for them. Quickly, and without much to show for it. Brendan pursued a career in accounting. He found a strange comfort in numbers. They were predictable, reliable, honest in a way that most things in his life were not. Weekends were spent watching sports with people he hesitated to call friends. He was always on the edge of groups. Always slightly outside whatever warmth existed at the center. On his 40th birthday, he sat alone in his apartment with a half-eaten cake on the table and the candles burning down in front of him. He watched the wax strip. Watched the flames flicker. Was this the right choice? The question crept in during quiet moments, always had. He thought about the life he could have had. Short but real. Authentic in a way this one never managed to be. The what-ifs had followed him for 15 years like a shadow he couldn't lose in any light. He blew out the candles and made a silent wish. Not for happiness. For understanding. A life built carefully. Brendan married in his 30s. Linda was kind, perceptive, and quietly aware that there was a wall around her husband she had never been invited past. They built a life together. 2 children, a house, holidays and routines, and the small daily rhythms of a shared existence. He loved his children fiercely, more than he had expected to love anything. But there was always a faint disconnect, a pane of glass between himself and the moments that should have felt most real. On his 60th birthday, surrounded by his family, his daughter hugged him tight. "I love you, Dad," she whispered. His heart clenched so hard he had to breathe through it. He loved her too, more than she could know. But standing in the warm noise of the party, holding a cup he didn't really want, he found himself wondering, quietly, painfully, what kind of parent he might have been if he'd made a different choice 35 years ago. Later, when the guests had gone and the house had gone quiet, Linda found him on the back porch staring up at the stars. "You okay, honey?"
He turned.
Offered the smile he had spent decades perfecting. "Just thinking." Linda sat beside him. After a moment, "You know you can talk to me about anything." For one suspended moment, Brendan considered it. The angel.
The choice.
The constant feeling of watching his own life from just slightly outside it. The words rose in his throat like something that had been waiting decades to surface. Then they stopped. "I know," he said. "Thank you." Linda squeezed his hand and went inside. Brendan sat alone with the stars and the silence and the weight of everything he had never said. The eve of 80. The years did not slow down. They accelerated, the way time does when you have already used most of it. He watched his children graduate, marry, begin families of their own. He held his grandchildren and marveled at their tiny fingers, their absolute trust in the arms holding them. He was present for all of it, and always beneath all of it, that quiet hum, that sense of observing rather than inhabiting, of playing a role so long that the lines between performance and person had blurred beyond recovery. On the eve of his 79th birthday, Brendan sat in his favorite armchair with a photo album open on his lap. He traced a finger over a photograph of himself at 25, taken just days after that midnight visit he had never told a single person about. The young man in the photo stared back at him with uncertain eyes, a shadow of something already visible in them that he recognized now as regret, worn so young he hadn't yet had words for it. "Was it worth it?" he asked the empty room. His voice cracked on the last word. And then, soft and warm and completely impossible, the room filled with light. The return. The angel stood before him exactly as it had 54 years ago. Unchanged, unhurried, looking at him with the same quiet, unblinking patience. "You," Brendan whispered. Tears rose before he could stop them. "Hello, Brendan," the angel said softly. "It has been a long time." He couldn't speak. The weight of 54 years of unspoken things pressed. "You've lived the life you chose," the angel said. "Was it what you hoped for?" Brendan looked down at the photo album, at the life captured in its pages, the milestones and the faces and the ordinary Tuesday afternoons that made up the texture of a human existence. "I don't know," he admitted. "I've had a good life. A family. Grandchildren." He paused. "But I've always felt like I was playing a role. Like I was watching someone else live while I stood just behind the glass. I've never felt whole." The angel nodded slowly. "And, if you could go back? Make the choice again?" Brendan closed his eyes. He thought of his daughter whispering, "I love you, Dad," on his 60th birthday. Of his grandchildren's hands. Of Linda, who had loved him faithfully despite the wall he could never fully take down. "I don't know," he said honestly. "I love my family, my grandchildren. I wouldn't want to lose them." A long pause. "But I always wonder what could have been." "There was no right or wrong choice," the angel said gently. "Only different paths. Each with its own joys. Each with its own grief. Will I ever know peace?" The angel's expression softened, not with pity, but with something deeper. Something that felt like genuine care. "That, Brendan, is still up to you. It is never too late to embrace your truth, to live authentically. Whatever time remains, the choice is still yours." The light faded. Brendan sat alone in his armchair, the photo album in his lap, the house quiet around him. He made a silent promise to himself. Whatever time he had left, he would spend it being honest. With himself, if nothing else. He closed his eyes. And as sleep came to take him, he thought about two roads. And wondered, with something almost like peace, about the one not taken. What if? But what if Brendan had made a different choice? What if, on that night 54 years ago, he had looked the angel in the eye and chosen differently? In another life, in the life that could have been, Brendan took a slow breath, steadied himself, and said, his voice stronger than he had expected it to be, I choose to live as who I truly am, even if it means only 20 years. The angel smiled, that warm, radiating smile. So be it, Brendan. Your new life begins now. Evelyn. The light was everywhere. A warmth that began at the center of her chest and spread outward, slow and certain and completely new, to the tips of her fingers, the soles of her feet, the surface of her skin. When she opened her eyes, she gasped. The mirror. Long auburn hair. Bright green eyes. A face that was hers, unmistakably, finally, completely hers. She raised a hand and touched her cheek with trembling fingers. This is me, she whispered. This is who I've always been. The first morning, as the sun rose on her 25th birthday, Evelyn stepped out into the world for the first time as herself. The air felt different. Fresher somehow, though nothing about the street had changed. Colors seemed brighter. The red of a passing car, the green of the trees lining the sidewalk, the pale gold of the morning sky. She stood on the front step of her building and breathed it in. For the first time in 25 years, she felt at peace inside her own skin. The months that followed were a whirlwind of change. Coming out to friends and family brought a mix of reactions. Some embraced her immediately, some needed time, some needed more than time. Her parents were initially shocked. But love has a way of being more durable than confusion, and with patience they came around. Not perfectly, but genuinely. Evelyn quit her job in finance, the spreadsheets and quarterly reports that had felt like a slow disappearing act, and enrolled in art classes at the local community college. She had always felt things deeply. Now she had found a way to put them somewhere visible. Her paintings were filled with color and movement, and an emotional honesty that caught people off guard. The local art scene noticed. Michael. It was at her first gallery showing that she met him. He was tall, with kind brown eyes and a gentle, unhurried smile. He stood in front of one of her paintings for a long time, really looking at it, the way most people don't. What do you think? Evelyn asked, stepping up beside him. He turned. His face lit with genuine surprise, not at her, but at the question, as if he hadn't expected the artist to be within asking distance. It's incredible, he said. The way you've captured light and shadow, it's like looking into someone's soul. They talked for hours that night. About art, about life, about the particular relief of finding someone who speaks a language you thought only you knew. By the end of the evening, Evelyn knew she had found something she hadn't let herself look for before. Their relationship grew the way good things do, steadily, without force, with the quiet confidence of something that belongs. Michael was patient with the hard days and joyful on the easy ones. He celebrated her victories the way only someone who truly sees you can. On their one-year anniversary, walking along the beach as the sun lowered itself into the water, he stopped, turned to face her, got down on one knee. Evelyn, he said, and his voice broke slightly on her name, in the best possible way. You've brought more light into my life than I knew it was missing. Will you marry me? She was crying before he finished the sentence. Yes, she managed. 1,000 times yes. The life she built. Their wedding was small and completely joyful. Evelyn wore a flowing white dress and felt more herself than she had ever felt in any room, at any moment, in any version of her life. Her art career grew steadily. Her paintings hung in galleries across the country, each one a record of something felt too deeply to say in words. She and Michael adopted 2 children, a brother and sister who arrived loud and curious and filled the house with a kind of happiness Evelyn hadn't known she was capable of containing. She volunteered, spoke at schools about identity and courage, and the particular freedom of being honest about who you are. Her warmth was the kind that lingers after the person has left the room. She lived like someone who knew time was finite, which, in a way, she always had. The diagnosis. At 42, she found the lump herself. The diagnosis came back. Aggressive breast cancer. She sat in the doctor's office with Michael's hand in hers and thought, with a clarity that surprised her, of the angel's words from 17 years ago. A fulfilling life, but a short one. "We'll fight this," Michael said, his voice thick. "Every treatment, every option." Evelyn looked at him, touched his face gently. "We will," she said. "But if it's my time, I want you to know that these years have been the happiest of my life. I wouldn't change a single one." The next 3 years were a battle.
Chemotherapy,
Radiation, multiple surgeries. She faced all of it with a courage that wasn't performed, that came from somewhere deep and genuine, the kind of courage that forms when you've already done the hardest thing and survived it. Even on her worst days, the days when getting out of bed was its own act of will, she found moments of beauty. A sunset through the hospital window. Her children's laughter from the next room. A blank canvas that still held the promise of something. She kept painting. The last birthday. As her 45th birthday approached, Evelyn knew. She gathered her family around her. Michael, their children, her parents, the friends who had walked this whole road beside her. She looked at each face in turn, slowly, the way you look at things you want to memorize. "I want you all to know," she said, her voice quieter than it used to be, but still hers, still warm, "that I have lived more in these 20 years than most people do in a lifetime. I have loved deeply, created passionately, lived honestly." A pause. "Don't mourn for me. Celebrate what we shared." In her final days, she completed one last painting. A self-portrait, not just her face, but the essence of who she was. A woman painted in joy, surrounded by swirling, vibrant color, radiating the particular piece of someone who spent their time being exactly themselves. On the morning of her 45th birthday, Evelyn slipped away peacefully in her sleep. Michael's hand in hers. The aftermath. The outpouring was immediate and genuine. The memorial service filled the church past capacity. Her art covered every wall, a testament to the beauty she had moved through the world leaving behind. People whose lives she had touched traveled from across the country to be there. Michael stood at the podium, with their children beside him. "Evelyn lived every single day to the fullest," he said, his voice steady, though it cost him something to keep it that way. "She taught us to be true to ourselves, to love without reservation, to find beauty in every ordinary moment." Her life was short in years. It was immeasurably rich in everything that matters. A young trans woman spoke from the back of the church. "Evelyn's courage gave me the strength to come out. I don't know if I would have made it without her story. Without her." An elderly man near the front recalled how Evelyn's kindness had carried him through the loss of his wife. A fellow artist spoke about her generosity with young talent, the way she made time for people who had nothing yet to offer her in return. The legacy, the years that followed, kept her alive. Her art continued to grow in recognition, museums, retrospectives, critical analysis of the depth and movement captured in every canvas. Books were written about her life. Documentaries. Young people struggling with identity found hope in her story, the way people find hope in light, instinctively, reaching toward it. The community center where she had volunteered established a scholarship in her name. Young artists who might otherwise have had no path forward found one because of her. Michael never remarried. He raised their children with stories of their mother, her courage, her humor, her insistence on finding beauty in everything, ensuring that her presence remained woven into their daily lives long after her absence. The gallery. On what would have been Evelyn's 60th birthday, a major gallery in New York hosted a retrospective of her work. Michael attended with his children and grandchildren. He was in his 70s now, moving more slowly than he used to, but still recognizably himself. He walked through room after room filled with her paintings. Each one hit him differently, some like recognition, some like grief, some like the specific warmth of a memory held so long it had become part of his body. Then one painting stopped him completely. He had never seen it before. A figure standing at a crossroads, surrounded by swirling colors of possibility. In the corner, almost hidden if you weren't looking, a tiny, luminous angel. His daughter appeared beside him. "Dad? I don't remember this one." Michael stared at it for a long moment. "I don't either," he said softly. "It must have been one of her last." A young woman approached them hesitantly, eyes wide, clearly gathering courage to speak. "Excuse me, are you Evelyn's family?" Michael turned, smiled warmly. "I'm her husband, Michael." The young woman's eyes filled immediately. "I just wanted to thank you. And her." Her voice was unsteady. "Evelyn's story, her art, it saved my life. I was in a very dark place. I was afraid to be who I really was. But learning about her, seeing what she built, how she lived, it gave me the courage to be honest about myself." Michael reached out and squeezed her hand. "Thank you for telling me that," he said. "She would have been so happy to know she's still reaching people." The young woman walked away. Michael turned back to the painting, the crossroads, the swirling color, the small hidden angel watching from the corner. He could almost hear Evelyn's voice, almost see her smile. "You're still changing lives, my love," he whispered. The studio. Later that evening, Michael sat alone in the old studio, the room that still smelled faintly of oil paint and the particular warmth of a space where someone once worked with complete absorption. He picked up a small framed photograph, a selfie Evelyn had taken on her 25th birthday, the morning she stepped out into the world for the first time as herself. Her eyes were bright. Her smile was the kind that comes from somewhere below the surface. She looked like someone who had just been given back something they hadn't known was missing. "You were right, my love," Michael said softly, tracing her face with one finger. "It was never about the number of years. It was about how fully we lived them." He set the photo down. A warm breeze drifted through the open window, carrying with it the scent of lilacs, Evelyn's favorite. The scent she had always said smelled like beginning something. For a moment, the room felt less empty. Michael sat back and let it wash over him. The grief, the gratitude, the 20 years of being loved by someone who had chosen, against all of the fear, to be completely and unapologetically herself. He smiled. Outside the window, the sun was setting, casting its golden light across the canvases on every wall, warming each one in turn, moving through the room like something alive. Somewhere, somehow, Michael knew without knowing how he knew. Evelyn was at peace. Her spirit as free and beautiful as it had always deserved to be. Her life was short. Her paintings still hang in galleries. Her name is still spoken by people who never met her. Her story still finds the people who need it most. She chose 20 years of being real, and the world is still feeling it.